All right, so it's been a while since I've actually recorded something. We will get into that in another video. For now, though, the impossible has happened. My wife is on the camera instead of somewhere out in the
Hiding in the
ether.
apartment.
Yeah, just hiding in the background, waiting until after to give your 2 cents about everything. And we have a new addition to the tribe.
Tell us how
You
really
gotta
feel.
catch the face. You gotta. Yeah. Yeah, his name is Imari Kiyoshi Rowe.
Yeah.
Born last week? Born last week ish?
Almost 2 weeks
Almost
ago.
2 weeks ago
Yeah.
now? Yeah.
Tomorrow will be 2 weeks.
It's all been a blur.
Yeah.
But we got one basic topic, but like not really one topic, just to kind of talk about today. And that would be actually what happened on the day this man was born, which would be the decision of Roe v. Wade being overturned, undone, reversed, whatever legal or whatever word you want to use to describe it.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah. We also want to take this time to at least give a small but really big thank you to all the people out there that helped. That helped with this little guy. Just kind of helped furbish us with all the parts and support and prayers that we were going to need to kind of get a good running start. And before we get into kind of discussing our thoughts on Roe v. Wade being overturned, TLDR, we like it, but there's more to say than just that. And I wanted her thoughts on 2 weeks of, I guess depending on how you count it, it's either 2 weeks or 9 months and 2 weeks of motherhood. But yeah, the mic is yours for now. What are your thoughts from like birth to now?
Okay. Birth and okay, so we're starting with the thoughts on motherhood topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Let's start positive and then
Okay.
we'll move. You gotta, because if you start controversial
Yeah.
and then go into like just regular
Right.
like life stuff, people
Right.
leave.
Yeah. Nah, I think something like I was telling you earlier, the whole epidural experience. So I went into this whole thing saying I didn't want an epidural because it terrified me more than the actual labor and delivery. Because
And also because as you can see with some of the books and stuff, it's also on this channel. Oh, we be medical here. What is an epidural? Oh, non-medical person. What is it?
it's anesthesia inserted around your spine, pretty much numbs you from halfway down your spine down.
All right.
That's the
all right. Here's the
dumbed down
here's the
version.
fun definition. Right, floating needle into the spine.
It's like a catheter spits out anesthetic all around your spine.
Yeah. Fentanyl just dropped right down the spinal cord to numb everything downstream of the insertion point.
Yeah. So this whole pregnancy leading up to 2 weeks ago, I was more terrified of the epidural or the idea of getting an epidural than the actual labor and delivery process. Because in my mind, I was like, well, my body's designed to do this. That epidural, though, that is not natural. That sounds absolutely terrifying. And I've heard more.
It's not natural.
Right. Anyways. And I've heard more horror stories of the epidural, of it going wrong online, or friends who didn't have a good epidural experience or whatever, where like I think one of the most drastic ones was somebody the epidural went up instead of down, so they felt everything for birth and they were not able to hold their baby afterwards because their hands and arms were numb, and that terrified me. And so going into this, I did not want an epidural, and that because I was so stressed out because of the pain, it prolonged it, so I couldn't actually enjoy the actual day that he was born to the extent that I could have. We were talking earlier, and I think like how true of that is just our culture with motherhood in general. Like we see, like the wine mom stereotype of, oh, my kids are causing me to, drink. Oh, I just got to make, start my day with coffee, end it with wine. And, you know, these darn kids are like the biggest burden, and I'm no longer me, I'm a milk machine, or I can't have any me time, or whatever it may be. And I think it's a similar concept of just, you go into it with, you know, the expectation that it's going to be this huge burden. Well, what's your mindset fixed on? You know, it's not fixed on what God wanted it and designed it to be. It's fixed on what society tells it. And I think going into this conversation, I think that's been one of my biggest meditations the last couple of weeks, of just, you know, there's a reason God calls us to take our thoughts captive, because those guide our actions, you know, and how we navigate life. I think, you know, in the last couple of weeks, you know, you wanting to help out more is harder because you can't feed them when I can, you know. So it's like you can only feed them what I pump ahead of time. And so for me, it's like the sleep deprivation. But I had that mindset going into it, knowing that I was only going to get an hour and a half max at a time, you know.
And I already didn't much sleep anyway,
right.
between
EMT, you know, and school.
Between
all the things.
Between right. EMS and respiratory school, and also, you know, PS4 is still a thing, and just, you know, independent study, like, you know, just between a lot of stuff, I already didn't sleep that much anyway.
Yeah. So I think for me, like, the sleep deprivation never really got to me until like maybe yesterday, but it wasn't because, I couldn't take it anymore. It's just my body literally couldn't keep up until that point. But I had the mindset of, this is what's going into it. I know how to handle it, how to prep myself, what to fix my mind on. But I think just as a culture, especially around this abortion conversation, there's this narrative of children are a burden, not a blessing, you know, and that's not the way God wanted and designed it to be.
What do you think people's fears, like how you were talking about the cultural stuff they brought up, and everything you mentioned was all, you know, fears, like I'm afraid that I'm going to be, you know, just the milk machine. I'm afraid I'm going to be, you know, less of who I was. You know, how do you think the pursuit of kingdoms kind of speaks to that? You know, whether it be Jesus' kingdom or your own kingdom.
Yeah, because like if you're pursuing His kingdom, then you're not looking at your own selfish ambitions, right? But like over in the West, all we want to do is build our own. We want to build. It's all about me, myself, and I, and what I can do to build those three things up. Instead of when you're focused on Christ's kingdom, then like what you were saying about the psalm with like, this is an arrow in our quiver now, you know, this isn't, we gonna exegete it. This isn't, you know, a huge burden on us. Like, yes, we have some extra expenses, but at the same time, like, which I know you're going to touch on later, it's just how richly blessed we are to have a community around us that has kind of like, my mom drove up and filled our house with all the little things that we did not think to stock up on, and helped us organize. And, you know, his mom came over and helped me meal prep, and just how we've had like a community of people, like what a blessing that is. And what a joy it is to be a part of God's kingdom in that way.
Yeah.
You know? It's not about us.
Yeah. There actually is some stuff even in the reason I wanted you to start with kind of your perspective on it. Like, as we were talking about a little bit before, you know, turning the camera on, so I had an idea of where, you know, where you're going to go with it. But what you don't know is that I figured where you were going to go with it would be a nice segue into kind of all the different spokes on the wheel that I kind of want to touch on. And I guess starting with me, you know, kind of my experience with it all. You know, it's been interesting. Like I was putting a lady when I got the call, because you called me when they told you at the OB.
Why'd you fuss it?
Like you called me when you were at the OB. After they, I guess, gotten your blood pressure or whatever, 150 over
70 or something. It was like barely considered high, but it was high enough that they were like, we can induce.
So she calls me. I'm at a clinical site putting a patient on a BiPAP machine. When you call, you're like, it's today, so
Finally.
yeah, so I mean, I let my people at the clinical site know, and let my instructors and all that know, hey, like, today's the day. You know, I gave forewarning about it. It's tips on how to be responsible if you got a baby coming in, you're in some sort of a program. Like, just be open about it. Most people are pretty cool about it. Yeah. So I drive 2 hours to the hospital. It's more like 140, an hour 40. The other 20 minutes is getting gas.
It's a drive.
I get there, still in scrubs. I'm gonna be in scrubs for the next day or so. It feels like,
yeah.
So from my perspective, it just felt like the longest clinical day.
Yeah.
Of ever. And one of the things I thought was funny was like just some stereotypes from the man's side, right? I mean, all the emotions were there of like, new person, but like the stereotypical freak out in the delivery room of like
where you pass
watching
out
it, where you pass
you
out,
puke or something,
the nurses have to like freaking resuscitate you because you can't handle, like, I'm not saying dudes don't go through that, but not this guy. And I don't know if it's just because of my constitution, my build. Maybe
it's also your field too, like what you're
going into. I have seen worse.
Yeah.
And this isn't even bad. Like you said, this is how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And but also I feel like there's probably a bit of overhype there too. Mm-hmm. Like the emotions aren't overhyped, though. Like not everyone has to like cry and like have this huge kumbaya moment. Like sometimes you're just silently in awe of the situation, and it's like, the emotions will build and they'll process, as you just kind of, as all three of you now are kind of learning, a new rhythm, and that's okay. Like you don't have to have this huge, emotional swell moment, in the moment.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to, like just appreciate what's happening for what's happening. As I am now looking at this guy, but yeah, like I told you, this is what, like a few days removed now when I brought this up out of Mark.
Yeah.
Where Jesus said, like if you gotta like step away to do anything, like that's fine.
Yeah. I'm just gonna take it off him because he's hot.
Yeah, but what Jesus said in Mark about the one that is going to be greatest among you, like he's first got to be the servant of all. Really, I was reflecting on that in terms of like new fatherhood, because like you said, like there wasn't much I could do in the opening besides just kind of fill in the gaps to kind of make things a bit easier, make things a bit more comfortable here and there. Mm-hmm. Like literally the only food that this guy can eat is like, and the microphone will still pick you up even if you walk that far out. You might have to actually.
I know, project.
Okay. Well, like the only food that this guy can eat can only come from her, right? Like I can't do anything with that. I can feed him, like she said, after she's kind of already done the work of pumping. So, like, the star in the situation is obviously this guy, right? Who I think could, in pretty much most measurable ways, be considered the least of us, right? Next on the list of stardom will be mom, because, you push the kid out, you're doing all the things, your body's rewiring itself in ways that no gender reassignment surgery could ever hope to touch. I'm just giving y'all that nugget. You know what I'm saying? Like this dude cries, and she just makes at the like.
Yeah, it's the hearing it.
At a sound, him. Dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's
insane.
That's wild. That's wild. Men can't do that.
Yeah.
Dress and drag all you want to, but you don't have that superpower. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. It's probably not all I'm saying. It might be all I say,
right now.
In this particular. Yeah, so she's doing all the work. So these two are clearly the co-stars of the movie right now. So then, like, where does that leave me? head of the house. Well, Jesus already said, right? And if you're acquainted with the kingdom, then, like, really hear this. If you are, yeah, if you are acquainted with the kingdom, then new fatherhood really is just an extension of how you've already been living up to this point, right? Considering others is more important than yourself, laying your needs aside. It's an extension of Christian discipleship, man. It's an exam of your sanctification, to be sure. But it's nothing different than what you've been walking through already. I knew he was gonna do this, by the way, but I'm keeping it all in because it's amazing. But yeah, like Jesus said, the one who would be first, the one who would be, leadership greatest among you, is gonna be the servant of all, right? And people can get mad. People will get mad that the Christian theology, the Christian teaching on marriage, that the husband is head of the wife as Christ is head of the church, and also by extension, Lord over his kids too. But what people always miss in that is that teaching of Jesus, right? If you're gonna be the head over them all, that means you also come underneath them to serve them all as well. And it hasn't really been a shock. It's just been an extension of my Christianity, but it's not been a shock. But I think what was a shock, I guess, was just how much you have to be in it for this to not really, break you, because if you're still in that mindset of kind of wanting to be that bachelor man that kind of does what they want to do and kind of has an adventure every other week, whether that be sexual or otherwise, then yeah, like fatherhood's gonna mess with you, man. Like it's going to, because this little one here, like he's got needs, and really, I mean, he's got all the same needs that you do, maybe a shorter list, actually, but the challenge comes in the fact that he can't facilitate any of those needs himself, so like you got to be there, and it's not like with a buddy or with a friend or with a slightly older child. You could be like, oh, okay, if you're hungry, well, go make yourself something to eat. Well, I mean, he can't. Like, the only way he can communicate is through cries and the occasional laugh. Very occasional laugh. I'd say one of the cooler things I've learned is that not all crying is a bad thing. I'd say maybe like 90% of the time he's crying, he's not like mad. Right. He's just like, it's just, yeah, it's a Facebook notification is what it is. Like, he's like, hey, give a little bit of a cry, I'm hot. Give a little bit of a cry, I'm bored. Give a little bit of a cry, where are you at? Give a little bit of a cry, I'm actually mad. And it's like as you go through these motions, as you just kind of learn as you go, you just, you notice that not all crying is the same. Which I guess I knew intellectually, but it's always fun when you know something intellectually before you experience it, because then when you experience it, validates the, oh, you're gonna sit there?
Yeah, I'll sit here.
All right. It's gonna validate the, the study that you did. And that's also been cool. If you're not the sort of dude that likes to serve, I don't know how else to say it, then, I'd say rethink this step. Like, and you don't actually have to have everything all figured out. That, I think, let's say you would agree with that, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot, like, you learn as you go. Like you said, like, you learn the cries as you go, and that's something that, as a parent, you're going to pick up on. This cry means I have gas. This cry means I need to change a diaper. I'm hungry. I just want to be held.
Yeah.
You know, and just I think too something that also took me by surprise in learning him was that he also has learned us. You know, like you know, the personhood of a 2-week-old understands the distinction between mom and dad. You know, like last night he only wanted me to rock him to sleep, but at the same time he is so content just looking and playing with you that he is not with me. You know,
Yeah.
because he'll just chill and look at all the things with you, but I'm like comfort your play right now. You know,
Yeah.
but that's, you know, like I said, like
It kind of fits to our molds
Right.
anyway. It's
Right.
like who we are as people.
right. But like that's also something that I've learned about this too, is that like he's learning already, you know. And
Yeah.
tomorrow being 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's his own person.
Yeah, he's not a little blob, you know.
And you know, like you were saying earlier, the characteristics have transcended his time in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, his fascination with my
Mm-hmm.
voice.
Yeah.
That's been a
yeah.
consistent thing even when he was in the womb.
Yeah.
I could wake him up if I just started talking.
Yep. And I would feel it in my ribcage. But yeah, no, and just how that still is today, you know? Like, oh, Dad's here, I'm gonna play, you know? Like, he is so wide-eyed and alert when he's with Dad, and then with me, he, like, instantly calms down.
Yeah, you know, that's perfectly fine. You know, it's just like the personhood of it.
Yeah.
You know, which people lose in this discussion
Right.
of, you know, Roe v. Wade, clean segues, clean. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that whole decision? Really, let's start with that. The decision. Let's kind of, you know, isolate a bit as best we can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you think of? Well, just answer the first question first. What's your thoughts on the decision itself?
I think the uproar over the fact that it's overturned is kind of funny to me because it doesn't necessarily make abortion illegal. Because now it's just giving it to the states.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what I see on my social media about it is people are getting mad at something that Roe v. Wade never provided, like birth control or access to women's health, right? Like, if you look at Roe v. Wade, my understanding of reading the actual document is just that it provided legal abortions to women in crisis, like quote unquote needed it for medical purposes, right? But
No, it wasn't even
yeah.
medical purposes. It was higher than that, right? Like
but
I might need cold medicine as a medical, like for medical reasons, but cold medicine isn't like a right of humanity.
Right.
To me, you know what I'm
Right,
saying? Like
yeah.
Roe v. Wade lifted it above that.
Yeah.
So like no, like this is an extension of, this is part of the core definition of wrapped up in right to privacy.
Right.
Right?
And
Which is one of those things that's debated. Does the Constitution really give it, or is it one of those implied things?
Yeah.
I'll leave that for the legal heads to kind of discuss, but you know, even if you want to go with right to privacy as a constitutionalized thing, you still have some argumentation to do to go from right to privacy is a thing to abortion is covered under your right to privacy, assuming that a right to privacy exists.
Right. Because that doesn't necessarily follow for me.
Yeah.
But my thing is that the people that are upset about, oh, now we don't have access to, you know, birth control and whatever health screenings for women, and I was like, you still have access to those things.
I literally see them.
Yeah. And it's one of those, I'm like, there's so many
I work
things
in the
out there.
hospitals. They literally happen and haven't been touched at all.
And the thing is for the affordability of it too. It's like insurance or not. Like I remember a couple years ago, I signed up for something called like the Pill Club. I think they rebranded to something else at this point now. But if you don't have a doctor, you can do a free virtual consult. They'll write you a prescription for birth control and all the condoms and all the extra goodies or whatnot, and it's dirt cheap. Like I think I paid $10 a month.
Yep.
And
you know,
like
put that to good use now.
But like that stuff's out there still. You don't need this legalized murder to be able to get birth control or condoms or
Yeah,
whatever.
if we're just gonna talk condoms, even though there's way more kinds of birth control than that, but if we're just gonna talk condoms, because that's the example that people always go for, right? Just a quick roll call of all the places you can get condoms within a 10-minute location of our apartment right now,
like,
right? There's Walgreens, there's Food Line, there's Walmart. That was what I meant to say first. Walgreens
station,
and Walmart.
Both gas stations.
The Food Line, both gas stations.
Yeah.
Like that's a quick 5
within 5 minutes of our apartment.
Right, like let alone if you open it up, or the places that still count and haven't thought. Oh, the BP gas station and the new 7-Eleven gas station and the Food Line down the way, which makes 8.
Yeah,
that's 8 places within just as many minutes.
Yeah,
where you can get condoms at all 8. At maybe 5 or 6 out of the 8, you can get pill prescriptions. You know, like, not even just morning after pills, just straight up prevention. So, like, I've never really understood why people ever bought that narrative of, like, you can't get the, like, I don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat, really, just to be able to look someone in the face and say, you're lying or short-sighted when you say
or
these things.
That naive.
Yeah, or just that naive, like, you know, like, you're something if you just don't know that.
Right. Yeah. I think for me that's been like the thing that's rocked my mind the most, I think, is just how ill-informed people are and what that bill actually provided. Like, literally the only thing
It didn't really provide anything. It just
except legalized murder.
Except that, like,
like, that's literally it. Because if you're looking for any of those other healthcare services, they're still available. They're still affordable. You know, like, there's so many programs out there. You know, between Obamacare, WIC, there's like so many things out there that you can get, like maternal health care, pretty easily and affordably.
Now,
and this is speaking from somebody who's used, who's used Obamacare, who's used those, like, the Pill Club websites and all this stuff. Like, it's a simple Google search, you know.
We say this from 5 minutes on Google and actually having used the things that we're talking about here. Yeah. Now, as you know, I've been in, I mean, I guess now it's kind of paused because no one's wanted to respond any further. Yeah. I guess because no vitriol is allowed, so I guess there goes the debate for most people. But, you know, I put on my Facebook, you know, just like, hey, like, I feel like having a conversation about Roe v. Wade. Only rule, no vitriol. I don't care if you're a Christian or a non-Christian. Hateful comments will not be deleted, but they also won't be responded to. So, there. You know, we had a healthy amount of people kind of at least initiate. No one's continued. But one thing I've heard in these conversations online that I try to have with people in civilized fashion, and I kind of want your thoughts on this, and I'll give mine. But he said if you're for getting rid of abortion, then you should be for universal health care, so that these displaced women will have, you know, recourse for when, you know, these botched abortions, these back alley kind of go wrong. Your reply, if any?
I would want more parameters on his definition of universal health care, because as you and I have discussed before, everybody kind of has a different definition of what that would mean. I would argue, I would offer to that are you using the programs that are already available first before asking for that? Because like I said, like, there's, you know, Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act, there's WIC, there's all of these other things, right, that are already available out there. Now, are they perfect? No. Are they underfunded? Yes. But there's still things that are out there that I think a lot of people just don't choose to use because of pride. You know, like,
or again, they just don't know.
Or they just don't know, right? But I would argue, like, I mean, you know, Obamacare, for a lot of people, if you're willing to get rid of or give up some of your tax return, you're going to get free medical. You know, where I know that's
yeah, you got that breast pump machine for
free.
And you said it cost around a grand?
Yeah,
Around a grand or two?
Yep, the kind that I got cost, if you were to get that, all the parts, all the bags for the milk and everything for the freezer stash, it would probably cost about $1,000. We didn't pay a penny for it. So like I would argue
In the traditional fashion.
yeah, yeah.
It'll come out of the tax return, but
right.
it's not coming out of your wallet per se.
Right. And so like yes, you're still technically paying for it, but at the same time, like it's not budgeted money. You know, so it's,
right.
So it's still free in a sense that you're not taking some out of your paycheck every week that's not already being taken out for
right.
taxes.
Right.
So I would argue just like look at the programs that are already available first before you start trying to recreate the wheel when you could just maybe refurbish it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. My response to people whenever they say that, because in conversations like this, you know, Jesus has done a big work in me over the last couple years, and the more recent fiasco that played a part in my absence from YouTube. He's just kind of been doing a lot and just kind of teaching me how to get through to people's desires. Now, the conversations usually end there because people don't like to go that deep, even though they talk like they want to go that deep. But whenever someone said that to me, I'm like, I mean, okay. Like, I mean, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I have to be completely against the idea of universal health care, right? I mean, if you think he'll stay cool with me.
Yeah.
What's up, little man?
Just real quick.
What's up, little man? What's up, little man? We podcast it, fam. We podcast it, fam.
Are you milk drunk, fam?
Oh, well, yeah, that too. As long as you stay that way, you're peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like, there you go. Yeah, like I've never felt a need to have to defend privatized healthcare or a need to attack universal healthcare, right? So like if I'm just trying to keep the discussion on the morality of abortion, then I don't usually defend it. Like, I'll let you have that. Like, okay, sure. Like, sure. But now that we're done on that rabbit trail, you know, lasted all the 5 seconds. Well, you should be for universal health care then. I'm willing to consider it. If that means that you're agreeing with me that abortion is a moral evil, well, I mean, I don't know if I'd say that. Okay, well, why is the universal, like, smoke and mirrors, man? Like, yeah. We can talk universal healthcare if you want to, but, like, just understand, like, once we're somewhat leaving the realm of strict orthodoxy, which is fine for me. I don't care, you know, but I don't think universal healthcare is a sin. It might not be efficient for all nations or people groups, but lack of efficiency is not the same as presence of sin. It's just, well, it's not as efficient as it could be. I don't really feel the need to defend it or attack it, you know? But I think what she's saying also kind of gets to, you know, your desire as well, just in a different fashion, right? Like, you got to actually use the stuff that's out there, you know? Because, you know, instead of just raging against the machine, fun as that is, and it is fun, what solutions does it actually bring to you? You know? Like, it doesn't. It just doesn't. Something I've found to be, like, weird is just, like, the amount of pure vitriol that's come out since it. Like, I didn't expect everyone to agree, because no one really fully agrees on anything. But the way people are disagreeing is kind of wild to me, isn't it? Like, and I get that, like, you know, it's the vocal minority on Facebook. Like I would say upwards of 95 to 99% of the pro-choice memes I've seen have come from literally one person on my friends list. And I've got a friends list that's like, I don't know, close to 1,000 strong maybe. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people, right? And a lot of those people are pro-choice, but all of the smoke and mirrors that I've heard of literally basically come from like one really active person that just like reshares pro-choice memes. You know? So, I mean, I only mention that just to kind of encourage Christians. Like, don't think that just because you're seeing a lot of memes on Facebook that, like,
Yeah.
it's this huge thing. I mean, it is a huge thing, but, like, I mean, consider how many separate accounts you're actually seeing these memes from, right? If it's just one person, then it's just one person who's making a crap ton of noise. But taking that into account, a lot of the argumentation is just very, like, weird, man. Like, I think the latest one I saw was like, oh great, like abortion's not a thing, but you can bet those Republicans will get their mistresses. But I'm like, I don't know these Republican senators to know the fidelity of their marriages or anything like that. But like, aren't you just assuming that these people are unfaithful, right?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't the same apply to your Democratic senators that have mistresses and what, like?
Right. It's as if only one side can be equal.
Right.
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
everything has to be polarized.
Yeah.
Polarized, I mean.
Yeah, and more to the point, think of the logic that a meme like that is saying, right? Abortion should be legal because the people that didn't,
Yeah.
because the people that were against it are also immoral.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's weird, man.
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Like, unless is it just working in reverse for Democrats? Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know. Like just be careful with pro-choice memes out there, and actually think about what it is you're reading, right? You don't have to think about really responding to everything, even in your head, But it's a nice mental exercise to really try to identify what is the argument that this image is actually trying to give right now. If you can get underneath to that, I think you'll find that a lot of these things are just really empty. Just just extremely empty. I'm gonna say it. The second I saw a little dude's head crowning, one of my first thoughts was like, yeah, nah, it's murder to kill these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I already knew that, but like, just look, like, dude came out with hair, like the hair that you saw on him a second ago.
I'm gonna make a bottle. You want him?
Sure, I guess. like the hair that you see on this dude is the hair that he had, when he was crowning. Right? Like, dude came out with a head of hair, came out with eyelashes, like, heard dude's heartbeat for hours on that little monitor thing. Like, you're a whole person, dude. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Show off your person.
Yes, sir. Like, yeah, but like he's they're whole people, man. Like in to date, I haven't really had anyone address that point well. Like, people either straight up dismiss it, or they'll say some evil nonsense of, yeah, they're people. Look at him. Yeah, he's a person, and this is exactly how he looked 2 weeks ago. He was covered in a bit more blood, maybe, and amniotic fluid, I guess. But what you're seeing is what he looked like day one.
I think you can even compare the ultrasound pictures too. I can get that in a second.
Like, this is what he looked like, man. Yeah. So, yeah, no, like you're saying, okay, he can be killed. And what's crazy is people would consider what I'm doing right now emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
Right? Me showing you dude's face and saying, okay, so you can kill him, people be like, that's emotional manipulation. And to which I would say, yes, it is emotional manipulation, because there are times when your emotions are actually right and they lead you down a path of truth. There are times where there's some times where, like, there are times where your emotions is jacked yet, to be sure. But then there's other times where it's your thinking that's jacked up. And it's your emotions that are trying to call you back into a place of reason. Weirdly enough. Or else what do people mean when they say stuff like, I can't refute your argument, but it feels wrong? Right? What are they saying? Except, there's a difference between, like, my head says it's logical, my heart doesn't quite buy it, and I don't know why yet. I'm going to investigate it. At least, I hope you investigate it. Right? That would be the hope. But people don't, They just say stuff like, oh, the mother's right to privacy. Like, not even right to life, right? You'd have a stronger argument if it were right to life. But people say just right to privacy, right to live my life as I want to live it. On its own, without any other factors, is enough of a justification to murder this little man.
Yeah.
Does that even sound right? Like...
So because I have a right to HIPAA, where I can go to the doctor and be by myself and not have my files read by other people, means that I can murder my kid and get away with it.
Yeah, like that's... There you go.
Yeah.
Hand off again.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people are saying, you know? You know, it's like I've got people in my own, you know, it's like there's people in my family that are pro-choice, and it's like I also appreciate y'all's support and bringing them here, but I always just find it an interesting contradiction, I think, you know, where it's like we recognize that we need dads in the home until a dad wants to actually be a dad when the mom doesn't want to be a mom, and then the dad is a jerk. Like, that's, I don't know, it's really weird to me. It's really weird, you know? What's one other thing? Oh, one other thing that they say is that, you know, women need abortion because... I'm kind of shortening the argument here, but this is kind of what they say. You know, women need abortion because men are pigs and they're not going to stick around and they're going to leave women in these, you know, tough situations, you know. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Is that how you've heard it worded, or is there like a distinction that you...
I would say it's because, you know, men are not reliable. You know, men are unreliable. They, you know, you're a sex toy and then they're going to leave you, essentially, you know, like... men are filthy animals. They don't love and or whatever. Fill in the blank.
They are
They're
everything
just the
that is wrong with the world.
Yeah.
Every single social ill can be traced back to a man's leadership.
Right.
I mean, I guess. I mean, unless you read this book, in which case the first problem was a co-effort.
Right.
You know, the man and the woman both fell.
Yeah.
They both failed in their own ways. Potiphar's wife. I mean, I'm just the original false flag Me Too'er.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, there are some toxic guys in there too. I forget his name, but the Lamech, first guy to have 2 wives and seemed to be quite abusive to both of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
he reveled in it.
Yeah, like both genders are fallen, fam. But in your opinion, do you think access to abortion solves or nurtures the problem?
Oh, it feeds it, 100%. Because it's a get out of. Oh goodness, it's a get out of all your consequences. You know, like if you know I can have fun and then just get rid of the result of that, you know, one night stand or whatever, then like then I can just keep doing it and not have to deal with any of the repercussions.
Right. And as a man, right, like I don't have to be there with you. You know what I'm saying? Like if I
smile.
Like if I know that you have access to an abortion, easy access. And if I also know that societal pressure is for me to not say anything about it, then I mean, if my root desire is just to have fun, avoid responsibility, and, you know, just essentially live a life of sin for my pleasure, then, I mean, like what man do you know with those priorities is actually gonna do anything in a world where abortion is, you know what I'm saying? My question to Cats, right, is in a world where abortion allows the prevention of all this, right? Where is the incentive for a man to stay?
Yeah, because it just feeds that narrative, like the women-led narrative of all men are filthy pigs because they don't want to stay.
The filthy pigs that already were trying to find ways to not stay.
Right, you're just giving them the best way.
Yeah, they were like, okay, if I leave, then what's gonna happen to me is, at worst case, or I guess best case scenario, will be I'm forced to pay child support, which is also far from the biblical ideal. But at least the woman has some sort of monetary support.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that, from our first 2 weeks of that, financial support is a far cry from what she actually needs. But I guess it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But in a world where we can just kill him, what incentive does the pig have to not be a pig?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
you're just handing it the escape card on a silver platter.
And I'm just saying, bro, like, I think Dave Chappelle said it best, bro. Like, if you have the right to kill him, I can at least abandon him and not pay a dime.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the difference?
Like both are evil.
Yeah.
But they would both be justified by the same rationale, right?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to give him my hard-earned money, privacy in my wallet,
Yeah.
my choice. It was a funny bit, to be sure, but if you actually thought about it, if you actually thought about what he said, the logic works, man.
Yeah.
So I love how he ended that. If I'm wrong about that, maybe we're both wrong. Figure it out for yourselves, man.
Yeah.
Like, that was clean. It was clean. But I mean, for real, like, there's no incentive, So these people, I don't say on the left, even if they are, because you'll find some of these attitudes amongst Christians as well. Right, so it's not just, let's not act like it's just an out there problem. It's an in here problem as well. People that support this on the grounds of men suck. Like, does this make sense to you, what I'm saying? Like, what we're saying? That being able to kill the consequence allows me to suck longer with even less of a repercussion.
Yeah.
It just does. And it invites ladies to be on board that train of, we're just going to be degenerate people. I think it just does.
Yeah.
It's not a sign of progress, man.
Yeah.
Like, that man out here chilling, bro.
I know.
Man out here chilling. Just some scripture. Psalm 127. It was kind of the one for me, right? Like, before this guy was in existence in any way, shape, or form besides the thought of what may occur down a potential timeline. The Lord was kind of, just kind of convicted me on some unspoken assumptions that I'd had, like, because part of the assumption is that having this little guy is going to kill all the fun in your life, and it probably will if that fun is sleeping around and,
right.
Not trying to make something of yourself.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, you can get by on minimum wage. Not really, but I guess barely. I guess. I mean, everything's expensive. I mean, it's not as expensive as California, but it's not exactly cheap here in North Carolina either.
Yeah.
And yet, all my friends that make less money than me still somehow have enough money to buy vapes and all this other stuff. Not that it's wrong. I'm just saying, right? If I was in their financial boat, I wouldn't be buying vapes. Be like,
6 packs.
I'm like, for real. I mean, bro, like, gas like forever dollars a gallon.
Yeah.
Like, I ain't got time for that. Remember, I was counseling somebody on that one time, and they were like, "Oh, you just want me to get rid of that because it's the godly thing to do." And I'm like, "Well,
it's a wise thing to do.
Not being a drunkard is indeed a godly thing to do, and you probably should check your own heart that you're scoffing at that. But I was just gonna say, gas is $5 a gallon, bro.
Yeah.
And you gotta drive 30 minutes to work there and back, like." I wasn't even going to go spiritual. I was just going to say buying that alcohol might make you too broke to get a paycheck, bro. Like, that's all I was going to say. Right? But, I mean, once a kid comes in the picture, you definitely got to be, trying to get some more, Does that mean you got to be put together? No. And the reason I would say for that is because no one has a definition of what put together means. Like, put together is very subjective. It's like, so what? I can't have a kid until I'm 30, 35? What?
A career at a certain place, a certain amount in savings, and it's like all those things are fine and dandy until it hits the fan and you have to drain your savings, or you lose your job because of COVID, or whatever. Like, if you're trying to think of, oh, I have to wait until the perfect time to have a kid, there's never going to be a perfect time.
Because you live in a fallen world,
Right.
and there's not a perfect time for anything but really salvation.
However,
Everything else is like,
yeah. However, like you were saying earlier, there's still like wisdom and practicality of like, yeah, so now that we have a kid, we're not going to eat out for dinner every night. You know, we're going to throttle back on the McDonald's runs and stuff like that. But like,
well, yeah, but I mean that comes
that
back
comes
to the
with
fruit of the spirit. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I hope you've been a disciple up to this point, because if not, I mean, it's not like it's hopeless, and it's just gonna be a lot harder than it had to. You know, like, because now it's just, okay, I've already had to apply the spiritual gift of self-control to, you know, my sex life, to my anger, you know, to my passions and hobbies. You know, like, I've had to apply that grace in so many areas that now it's just an extension.
yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, we got to apply self-control to make this to be a bit more. All right. But if you go from living wantonly, how you've wanted to live, right? Basically, how Paul describes in Romans 6, right? A slave to that sin principle that says, if the desire creeps up in me, go chase after it, right? You can't do that when a kid enters the picture. So then you get this really rude 180, because it can't be anything less than a 180 when a kid comes in the picture, or else, you know, it's going to hamper your own flourishing. It's going to, right? But I wanted to speak to that mindset of, you know, we got to have the house in order and we got to have everything set. Bro, Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Now, that might sound like unrelated. And Psalm 127's two halves do feel somewhat unrelated the first couple times you read it. And I'm just going to read these 5 verses right here. Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds the house. A song of ascents of Solomon. Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. In the gate. Now, that sounds kind of unrelated, but like, having lived for at least these first 2 weeks, I kind of starting to see it, right? Or at least an application, right? Starting in the middle, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward, and like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. The Lord started to convict me on that last phrase, the children of one's youth. He's very specific, right? The children of one's youth. I mean, I guess I'm still, in the grand scheme of a potential human life, it's like I'm not 30 yet. I guess below 30 is still a youth, I guess. You know? And it's like, everything around me says that they're not a blessing in that time frame. Between the years 18 and 30, between the years 18 and 30, bad idea to have kids, right? Now, maybe if you're not married and stuff, probably. But let's assume you're married, right? Is it a bad idea? In general, right? Our practical wisdom would say no. But then you look at the Word of God and he's like, nah, fam, that's a blessing to the youthful man when he has a kid. Not just has a kid, but is able to fill up his quiver. There's a blessing to that man. You know, the question is, do you believe? Do you believe that it actually would be a blessing? That it would be an upgrade to the substance of life that you have now, right? I will say right now, having him in some ways, not in every way, but as it pertains to this, was, taking God at his word. It didn't really take that much for me to do that with, about a decade of following him behind me. It's like, I've got experience. Like, God's good for it. You know what I'm saying? But it's a blessing. And yet, we disagree with that. We're like, yeah, but if I don't have the world in order, well, back up to the start of the psalm, unless the Lord builds this house, those who labor in vain. So, yeah, there's going to feel like there's a bit of futility in you trying to have your life all put together, because when that's your mindset, you don't have the mindset of letting the Lord build it. You don't have a mindset that would even allow you to think that saying, no, the Lord's got it, is a responsible thought. Right? Like that's a
sounds reckless.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds reckless to people that think they've got to have life put together themselves when people say, no, I don't have all the details figured out, but I'm, trusting God. And not just am I trusting God, the one thing I do know is that it's going to be fun. It's going to be lit, bruh. People have looked at me in the weeks coming up to him and saying, oh, that's naive, bro. What if something terrible happens? Okay, something terrible happens, and we deal with it. What you want me to do about it 3 weeks out? You know what I'm saying? Obviously you plan, but people gotta you gotta be able to understand what you can and can't plan for.
Right.
Right?
And being able to hold those plans with a loose grip.
Right. It's all I could plan for was okay, well, if her water breaks, handle it, get you in the car, and we go. What else is there to the plan other than that, right? If there's an emergent situation, I am trained in emergency medicine, my guy. I can either handle it myself or call my coworkers and we can handle it. And then we get you to the hospital and we birth this baby. Mm-hmm. Or we birth in the... But
yeah.
You want me to plan out each of those? And that's ridiculous. I got clinicals. I got things to do, bro. The Lord's building the house, right? If the Lord's not watching over what's happening here, I'm staying awake, making all these doomsday scenarios in vain, right? It's in vain. I would rise up early and go late to rest thinking about this, eating the bread of anxious toil, when the Lord's on the sidelines talking about, hey, I got this lovely sleep package for you. Yeah. You want to sleep? You can sleep soundly while I watch over things. And if that's how you're looking at it, then when that child comes, you'll be able to say he's a heritage from the Lord. You'll be able to say he's a blessing and a fruit of the womb. But we don't talk about that lead up to it, right? You got to talk about that lead up to it. You got to. But, is there any other?
I think that touched all the stuff I had. I think, like I said, the biggest takeaway for me the last couple of weeks has just been how much our culture influences our
theology, bro.
Yeah,
it's
children are a burden. Children are big. Like you said, you have to check off however many boxes of adulting milestones before you can welcome a kid to the world.
It's I'm not done with college yet.
Yeah.
And your career's been thrown for the wildest loops lately.
My career is not what I had planned. My 5-year plan was trashed this year for the school year.
Really, in all your contingencies, and she had quite a number of contingencies.
So it just proves your point of you can have the best laid out plans and they can go to crap.
It doesn't have to matter. That's what I tell people. It's good that you're a planner, but the fact that you're a planner doesn't have to matter unless God kind of signs off on it or doesn't wreck it. You know what I'm saying? Because he's got something better. Yeah. Or just something else.
Right. I never thought that I could stay home and work a part-time job online. But that's apparently what God has planned starting in August, And like you said, you're in college and... according to society around us, we did not check off enough boxes to welcome a kid successfully, but
Yeah, if the woman wants to be able to go through college, and she's got to kill the kid.
Yeah.
That's actually the last thing I didn't want to touch on, though, because I just want to make sure, just that aspect of community, right? Yeah. and this is going to sound like a terrible thing to bring up in a video that's already controversial, right? But the slavery laws in the Bible, right? One of the cool things about them, it's always a tough sentence, right? The slavery laws in the Bible, one of the cool things about them, right? But for real though, like one of the cool things about them, right, is the fact they were elevating human rights. And if you actually study them in totality and actually picture a scenario, right, they were a way for someone in poverty to climb out of poverty and stay out of poverty.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they were. Like,
Yeah.
sign yourself over to a maximum deal of 7 years. It could be less, but it couldn't be more than 7 years of, servitude to a family, right? And the whole idea is that you're going to pay off whatever debt if you have a debt, or if you don't have a debt, you're just going to kind of, you're going to stack bread without having to deal with the cost of housing and food and all this stuff, while also, hopefully, here's this word again showing up in the Old Testament without actually showing up, is the concept of discipleship. Because that's what would be happening, right? You're living with a family that knows how to put life together in a way that it doesn't break.
Right.
For multiple years without having to worry about, some of the extraneous elements.
Yeah.
And by the time you're done, hopefully you shouldn't have to come back into this system.
Yeah.
Not because the system's bad, but just because there's more flourishing for you to do outside of it than in it.
Yeah.
Although if you wanted to stay, you could.
Yeah.
You just gotta, you have to make that profession to Israel's courts, and they make that a legal thing. But, it just got me thinking, right? Like people bring up all the these universal health cares and all this stuff, and has anyone ever thought, just looking at God's picture for like God actually uses the family for quite a bit in the Old Testament. Right, there's a lot of things there, and especially the laws around slavery, servitude, pulling someone out of poverty. If families weren't a structure, none of those laws could work. Mm-hmm. Right? Like God's plan for getting people out of poverty in the ancient days was attaching a poor person to a well-to-do family so that way they could learn the practices and habits of that well-to-do family, so that way they could then leave at the end of their service time and replicate it in their own way, right? Have we considered that maybe a similar sort of model would work for, single moms?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that the church would have to kind of lead on, most likely. But I don't really, especially because the thought birthed in me, right? Considering all the stuff that our extended family gave to us to kind of get started. And it was like, this is a beautiful thing, but it would be a really weird thing if we had to get all this stuff from the government.
Yeah. Yep.
Like the breast pump being an exception. Mm-hmm. If we had to get literally everything.
Yeah.
That would be weird, especially considering that some of the stuff we got also came with lessons, because your mom drove up, and then my mom was helping you out. Like there's a building of relationship that goes on there that also makes this process of raising a little one easier, right? You don't feel as comforted by the government backing you as you do people backing you.
Right.
It's not the same kind of encouragement, right? So, just something to think about, and maybe something we'll talk about another day in more detail, right? Yeah. Is what would it look like potentially for families within the church to adopt a single mom, right? Like, Crisis Pregnancy Center is already kind of close to that, but like the next step,
right?
I kind of feel like it would be something like that, something that mirrored the slavery laws in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Or it was like, you can live with us free of charge, basically.
Yeah.
For, a couple years. You get on your feet. We disciple you on how to do this parenting thing. You know what I'm saying? You've got the safety net of community, right? Like, people always talk about social safety nets. The biggest social safety net is society. Yeah. When society's running right.
Yeah.
We are all we got, fam.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts as a Republican or a Democratic thought. I feel like in some ways it's a fusion of both.
Yeah.
But, I do know it's 100% kingdom.
Yeah.
To say, let me offer you the ability to come into all that I am and have to lift you up. You know? Like how Jesus says in Luke, right? Don't be afraid to give of your possessions to the poor, right? We always think of that as meaning charity, of having to mean charity. There's a lot of ways that can look. It doesn't necessarily mean you're giving your possessions over. It might just mean welcoming that person into your home. Is that radical? Yeah. Is that crazy? Letting a single mom that very well might have poor habits and all sorts of other things into your home because, you're not just influencing them, they might be influencing you. I get all that. But if we're going to be people that rail against the evil of abortion, then we have to also do what the Bible commands, and that would be to do justice. Right? It says it in Amos. I might end up putting that one on the screen, but we don't have much to do as Christians. Walk humbly with God and do justice, right? You don't need to have all the governmental power in your back pocket to do justice. You just have to do justice. So do it. I'm just saying, consider it. And, if we actually live out what Jesus intends us to live out, then, are we going to get rid of abortion completely? No. But we will be a living testimony to this world that there is another way, a better way, that leads to a kind of flourishing that you didn't even know was possible, fam. Didn't even know was possible. All right. And I'll let you have the final thoughts on that. Whatever you have to add to that or whatever. Just that idea of you don't have much to do as Christians. Just walk humbly and do justice.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean that my idea is necessarily the only way to do it, but just have we considered an idea like that?
Yeah.
Some sort of a church program where it's we have charity, and if that's all you want, then sure. But we'd also like to at least offer you the ability.
Yeah.
Move in with one of our families.
Yeah.
Live with them.
Yeah.
For some years to get on your feet, fam.
Yeah. And I think it's such a simple verse too, like you were talking Micah 6:8, right? Such a simple verse can.
Micah 6:8. Thank you for that. She knows the addresses. I don't.
But that dictates so much of your orthopraxy, right? How you live out what you believe.
Right.
And that
orthopraxy versus orthodoxy, guys.
Yeah.
Orthodoxy, doxy thinking, ortho right thinking, praxy practice.
Yeah.
Right practice that stems from your right thinking.
How you live out your doctrine, right? But I think that in the church we try to think of all of these wonderful, elaborate, big programs, and it's no, it's literally just 3 things.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. He has told you, oh man, what is good. Literally, he's told it to you. We asked all, what is good?
Yeah.
He's told you, oh man, what is good. And
I'm sorry.
And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God.
That's such a good rubric too. On how are you living out your ministry? Are you doing those 3 things? If not,
rethink them, fam.
Yeah,
that's all that matters, dude.
Yeah,
it's all that matters.
Yeah,
just building the kingdom, man.
Yeah. I'm sleepy.
I think it's what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom's supposed to be this big tree where all the birds and forest creatures could find refuge in.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. So, man, I would just encourage y'all to consider that. Consider all the stuff we talked about, right? But especially consider that. Yeah. How can you do justice from your position to, not just single moms, but just whoever it is that needs justice done in your neck of the woods, in your area of the planet, what justice is there to do? Then, do it. Do it. For the gospel, for Jesus, and, do it, man. So, that's all we got, like we said, many thanks to all the
thank
family
yous.
out there
All the
for
thank yous.
for helping with this little man. And you know, we'll definitely be commencing the family tour for all you guys to
Yeah.
see, touch, and behold the wonder of who LJ would say is Imari Kiyoshi Rowe, the chosen one. And you know, just for him, bruh, I will do the thing, bruh. I will do the thing.
He's so confused.
It is done. All right, you've been christened. All right, there you go.
So
You've been christened, fam. All right, and with that, we will have some more Bible studies in Luke coming. I'll actually film the next episode after I get done with this one. Who knows when I'm going to post it, but we're back. We're back. And also going to be telling the story of what exactly, not really the story, but just kind of what happened that caused my hiatus. It'll be a new series. It'll be a year-long series, 12 videos, 1 video a month. Signs of a dead or dying church. Should be really interesting. And Meredith doesn't know it yet, but she's helping with that. She doesn't know it yet, but you know, she's on board now that she's had a taste of the camera. She's gonna be wanting to come back. But with that, y'all, peace.